Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in again. We're going to do something a little different this week because when you see this, I will be recovering. I will be at home recovering from surgery. So I didn't want to go without doing an episode. And a friend of mine, Dana Wilkey, who is a Real Housewife, if you are familiar with the Beverly Hills franchise, she's the one with the $25,000 glasses. Did you know? So I'd asked her to be a guest on my podcast, and she'd asked me to be a guest on hers. So we decided to do a little collab, and that's what we have for you this week. So we are combining Perfectly Twisted with Nicole Eggert and Dishing Drama with Dana. And here we go. I think this is a great idea. My podcast is Perfectly Twisted with Nicole Eggert. I'm a big fan of Dana, and I obviously, if you've ever seen my podcast, we also love Housewives. Yeah, this is a perfect collab.
Yeah, I was dying when I was put with Nicole. So what brought this about was, of course, Nicole is got a lot of attachment to Bravo, sort of through different people. Like, for example, I saw, Nicole, that Kyle Richards supported you. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But also, you have this amazing documentary that just came out after Baywatch.
Yes.
And I was shocked because you not only are in that, but you produced it. And I had a fan who's a fan type person. And I was like gushing over the Baywatch documentary. And he's like, oh my God, I know Nicole. Do you want me to put you together? I was like, yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's been a long labor of love. We started it before pandemic. I had originally been shopping a show with a lot of the women from Baywatch. And it was sort of every network I took it to, it was sort of turning into a reality vibe. And this has been a few years. That was when reality was really like on the uprise, and it just didn't feel right. So we didn't take any of those offers, but I was bummed. I was like, there's something here. There's something here. So I was talking to my friend Matt Felker, who is a personal friend, and we're both really big documentary buffs. And he goes, why not make this project a documentary? And I was like, okay, let's talk about that. Like, what does that look like? I have a vision for it. He shared the same vision, and we rolled with it. And we got what we wanted done. I mean, it looks exactly how we wanted it to. It's so different than anything you would imagine from Baywatch. I was so tired of the same old regurgitated interviews. Actors are like on autopilot giving interviews. They use the same pictures. It just was like fluff and bullshit. And we wanted to just show like the depth. There was some depth there, believe it or not. And we wanted to get that across.
Well, I enjoyed the behind the scenes information that was shared on the show. I mean, yeah. I loved the tea. Like, it's about time that some tea be spilled about Baywatch, right?
Yeah, and it's not like who's screwing who. It's not who's fighting on set, who's jealous. It's none of that. There's no expose part to it. It's about like the real journey, like what people really experienced and how the show affected their life and how this show became #1 in the world before the internet. And it made trends. I mean, I believe that boob jobs and lip fillers really came from Baywatch. And it was because they saw it on TV.
And one of the young actors that came on the show very young, when he was, 14 or maybe even younger, right? What was Jeremy?
Younger. I think he was probably 8 or 9 years old.
Okay, so he comes on the show and he has no filter, which I loved. I mean, I know a lot of people had a few jaw-dropping moments with him because he admitted that when he was
clutching their pearls. Yeah, people were clutching their pearls, but he's very honest.
But I appreciate the honesty because, I mean, come on, cut the crap. Everybody isn't perfect out there. And he was so typical of the time of getting an opportunity that was huge like that and becoming an overnight star at a huge level. He's super young. He comes from a very difficult family life to do with the fact that his father wasn't around. And he's thrusted into the limelight as a huge star. Yeah. And how do you grapple with that as a young man? and stay not in trouble. Like, I mean, almost everybody in the 80s became a drug addict.
That's a true statement. And it just was such a weird time, and people didn't know what to do with fame. Paparazzi were just coming on the scene. TMZ didn't exist yet. There was a lot. There was all of a sudden eyes were getting turned on you because camcorders came out. Up until then, we didn't have anything like that. People did not have phones with cameras in their hand. There wasn't any of that. So camcorders came out, and all of a sudden, people were recording everything.
And to be fair, there's kind of three types of actors really around this time, right? There's actors that, they have a drug problem and it comes out and everybody knows. Right. There's actors that have a drug problem and they hide it really well, or a drinking problem. I'll say that. Yeah. Or they're sober actors.
Right.
Pretty much. There's very few moderate scenarios with thespians in LA during this time period. It just, this is a wild child 20 years, really, which I came up in part of it. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But I know a lot of people died about him admitting that in his adolescence that he went in everybody's bathing suit drawers and smelled their bathing suit.
And turns out, like, I was his favorite. I was like, well, okay, I don't want to hear that part. Like, I don't want to know because I love him very, very much. But mine was his favorite was, I got a kick out of it. It doesn't freak me out. He was a young boy. Like, what do you expect? Like, what do you expect? I'm sure there's young boys that did way worse.
Oh my God, to Baywatch? Yeah.
Worse. I mean, if you had access to all the women that were on Baywatch and their undergarments in their room, you're going to tell me you wouldn't. So listen, I don't hold it against him. I actually really applaud him for being honest.
Yeah. And it's really apparent in the documentary that, he was in love with you since a little boy. Right.
Yeah.
So yes. He's got a boy crush on you. And it's not difficult to see why. I mean, to be perfectly frank, Nicole, since you were very young, I mean, when you were on Charles in Charge, you are like smoking hot.
The irony of that is I felt so out of place on Baywatch. I didn't feel that. That's why I cut my hair off. I wanted to go for like an athletic, young rookie kind of vibe. So, I wasn't really ready for that. And of course, like I had just come off Charles in Charge where there was abuse, there was sexual abuse. So being hot and like being free with my sexuality, I got me into a lot of trouble. And so I went into this really guarded and really scared. And I was like, they're wanting me to like do this and do that. And like, I can't because this got me in trouble last time. So,
oh God, it kills me to hear you say that. And I do have something I want to tell you because I did a little research, obviously, for this show that we're doing together. And I guess what I wanted to tell you was something that when I was coming up in Hollywood, okay, I went to LA and I was friends with a lot of models and celebrities. And, I did the Playboy parties and all that. And I want to talk to you about that a little. But I ended up hanging out with Justin Murdoch, who is, I guess, like an LA blue blood guy. His dad owned Dole Pineapple and he owns like an island in Hawaii. And my best friend went out with him. I guess if you want to call it that, because you know how Justin Murdoch is for the people who know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I can imagine, just because of Scott Baio. So the thing is that Scott Baio was around this group. There's a crew of very rich, powerful, kind of ruthless guys in a sense that all hung out together. They ran record labels without giving names. They were drug dealers pretending to be producers. And they were directors and they were in the whole party circuit and they were really wealthy. So anyway, they were hanging around with Scott Baio. He was part of their party group. And what I wanted to tell you was that before we did this show, I was doing some research about you and I saw that you did Charles in Charge. And I said to myself, oh my gosh, she was with Scott Baio, meaning on the show. Yeah. And I was like, I can't imagine her being young and hot like you were on that show around Scott Baio because Scott Baio had the worst reputation. I was
Yeah.
warned on many occasions that he's an awful person. This was back at this time. I mean, I don't know, the guy could have changed. We're talking about, probably the 2000s for me. I know your time with him was earlier, but obviously he didn't change a lot at that time.
Yeah.
And I was told, don't intermingle with him. He's only into playmates. He never sees like a girl more than once. He's an over the top player. Like, watch out for Scott Baio. Watch out. It was like danger. I never went near him because of that. I actually stayed away from him. Now, I hung out with all the other a-holes in this group I'm talking about, but not, okay, intimately, but not him. And so when I saw that you were on Charles in Charge, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to ask her what that was like. Did she have any problems with him? Then I jumped to your Wikipedia page and I saw that you had said that he tried to have sex with you when you were 14 or something. And then it finally happens at 17. But then he was saying, no, it was 18 or whatever, like it matters. But like, I'm just wondering, I guess I just wanted to tell you, I know I validate your story. Totally.
Thank you. Thank you. I think most people do. With all due respect to Justin Murdoch, I don't think Scott Baio was cool enough to even hang out with Justin. Justin was never but anything but a gentleman to me. So like I've heard stories, I've heard all of that, but it didn't include me. With Scott, it was a on set all day, every day. We were together all the time. So there was a lot more room for grooming. There just was a lot more room for abuse to just start happening. I'm not the only child on that set he abused. Other people came out. And yeah, I've heard horror stories. I've heard a lot of horrible stories. But when you're 13 years old, you're really focused on school and work. And like, you're not reading tabloids. You don't know what's going on. Like, you don't know what's going on at the Playboy Mansion. I went to the Playboy Mansion for the first time at probably 8 or 9 years old. I was doing a play at the Mark Taper Forum. And that's where the after party was. It was a Jules Pfeiffer play called Grown Ups. And I mean, I had the best time of my life. All the playmates took me in that grotto. My mom was there. We just had such a good time. Went through the zoo, saw all the animals. Of course, later down the road, when I would go to these
I was like, come on, Nicole, you went later than that. You had
oh,
to.
yeah. Oh, yes, of course I did. And I went later and Hugh was always very kind to me. He had offered me to be in the magazine numerous times and it just wasn't right for me. And he still respected me and he still invited me and he was still very kind to me. So I felt comfortable at the Playboy Mansion, but yes, you're right. He was a regular. And he was one that people would say look out for.
Yeah. Well, it was just funny how it went down. I guess I'm sharing this with you because it was so organic that I had that memory of Scott Baio and the warnings and everything. And then I jumped to your page and saw that. And I was like, oh, duh, that's on brand, at least at that time. Right.
Yeah,
I think he went on to marry a playmate,
he
Scott
did.
Baio.
He did, and she's a real piece of work. I could go on for days about her. She's a nightmare. It's just they're a match made in heaven.
Like, geez, I bet. Well, I didn't have great relations with Justin Murdoch, although I loved his brother before he passed away. I thought he was the best. But Justin, yeah, not so much. Him and I had a whole bunch of fights and stuff, but it was mainly because I was protective over my best friend who he was with for a while. So he wasn't the best boyfriend, as you can imagine.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, I think you count on one hand how many good boyfriends there are here in Los Angeles, but
Oh my gosh. I
I
know.
you know, yeah.
So tell me, what was your favorite Playboy party that you went to as an adult?
I always loved the Midsummer's Dream. Like I always loved that one because you could actually like wear clothing.
Unless they painted you.
I didn't, yeah, and that wasn't my jam. So I always, felt comfortable about that. And, all my friends were there. I would always see like my producers from Baywatch there. I knew a whole bunch of people there. And, I really kind of stayed out of any shenanigans there. So for me, it just was like a fun party. And I hold that in my heart. For me, the Playboy Mansion was never gross. It never freaked me out. I never had a bad experience there. I was always treated well. I always looked at it like this fantasy place because when I was a little girl, obviously I wanted to be a mermaid. So when they put me in that grotto, I was like, oh my God, like this is everything. And then there was a game room that they put me in when I was younger, and it was like all cushioned floors. Like it was cushiony. It was filled with foam, and all the video games didn't need tokens, and you got all the extra men you wanted. And I was super into Centipede. And so like my experience at
I'm
the
like, wow,
Playboy,
you're at the best time when you were little there. That sounds like that's
but it
awesome.
carried over. It carried over when I was an adult because I was like,
You'd
I've
be in
never
the game room.
yeah.
I
Uh,
love it. I had some crazy Playboy stories. I also am like you. I had a great time at the Playboy parties. My favorite was Midsummer, mainly because it was the most exclusive. Hugh had a bunch of different lists. And so, depending on the party, the list was bigger. And the Midsummer was the smallest and most exclusive list of the groups, right? I think New Year's and Halloween were like the least exclusive or
that was a
something.
little crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you'd go and Midsummer was like, you're going to get A-listers. Leo DiCaprio was always there. Toby Maguire was there all the time. Who else was always
And these
there?
were my friends. Like these were people I grew up with.
I think it's Leo's rep is because he dates still 20-year-olds. That's why he gets like a
Well,
bad rep.
okay, fine. But he can get them. So I mean, whatever. I don't know. Yeah, so I would just see friends, and I think that there was a part of the Playboy Mansion that was just very normal, and everybody was there for the party. And
Yeah.
it was like the underground weird go into those bathrooms that were off the side of the grotto. There were those weird bathrooms.
There
So
was also that secret bedroom in the game room. There's a secret bedroom in there.
yes, which also had that foam floor, which when I was 8 or 9 years old, I thought was more like a trampoline. And my mom was like, "Oh, we should probably go. Like, you should probably get out of here. Are you done playing Centipede? Let's get out." But there was nobody in there doing anything creepy. But yeah, yeah, of course, in hindsight, now I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the grotto was very, cool. People used to wander around, around it. I never went in the grotto.
Hmm.
I probably should have done that with my clothes on, actually. I don't know
Yeah.
why I didn't do that. I did make out with you, Hefner, once, so
Oh, you did? Oh,
I
I
did.
love that. What was
I,
that like?
oh
Tell me.
God, not good. Not good at all. No offense to Hugh, okay, but big age gap.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What happened was this was when I first got invited to the Playboy Mansion. What happened was Hugh, he started the Playboy parties for a while and then he stopped them for a while and then he started them again. And I can never remember in the timeline, what part this was. But basically, he started doing these like Playboy corporate events at Garden of Eden. Do you remember this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so I went to one of those events and I was, I don't know what I was wearing, but I was in some like hot outfit or whatever. And his bouncer, they were Situate with all the girls he was traveling around with in like a little cul-de-sac thing that was like VIP in the Garden of Eden. And so his bouncer picked me up out of the crowd and said like, "Oh, come here." And I was like, "All right." So I went up and started to sit with Hugh Hefner in the VIP area with these girls. And then the next thing you know, I was like moved over to sit next to Hugh. And then we started chatting. And he just reached in and went for a kiss. And I was like, what else do I do? I don't know. Why not? Go with it. So I made out with Hugh Hefner. And then that is when he got my number to get to his assistant or whatever, where then I was allowed to go through the registration process of getting on the Playboy Mansion list. And I had to send in a photo and all this stuff. And, they spot checked it every year and, made sure you didn't get fat or whatever. And then you could still come. Or married or whatever. So I did that whole thing. But that was my introduction to the
I
Playboy.
mean, you bring up the Garden of Eden. I remember being outside walking in and him pulling up in a limo and like 6 blondes getting out with him and following him. And I was like, wow, like, wow, good for him. Like,
Well,
what?
it's true. And there's just those were really fun times, even though there's total scandals, as you look back. I mean, there's scandals with everything to be. I mean, I don't know what isn't scandalous anymore. But all right. So I wanted to say that about Scott. I wanted to talk to you about that. Okay, I'm going to tell you one of my favorite Playboy moments, and then you could tell me one of yours, and then we'll move off this topic. So I'm
Okay.
dying. All right. So I had a situation where I was partying and I was kind of spacing out, and Arsenio Hall sat down next to me. And Arsenio Hall was huge at this time. He was like a big talk show host.
Yeah.
And he started to kind of hit on me. And I was new to kind of the Hollywood scene or whatever. And I felt like I was in a movie. Like I really felt like I felt like I was sitting,
Coming to America, you were like on the Arsenio Hall show.
Yes. I thought, am I dreaming right now? Am I on Arsenio Hall? And I was like all messed up too. So it really added something to it. But yeah, it was so surreal. But that's one of my favorite moments. I know that's probably means nothing to you guys, but it was really cool for me. Go
Wave
ahead.
that big finger at you, like, because he has an especially large finger, doesn't he? I mean, if we remember this correctly, go back and look at Arsenio Hall's fingers.
See?
Yes, yes, they're huge. So I would imagine that this would be part of his pickup, and if it wasn't, it
It
should
should
have
have
been.
been. Totally. So
So
did you have any weird experience for you at Playboy like that?
no. So for me, ironically, all of my experiences at the Playboy Mansion have been so wholesome. It's a little bit crazy. I've been there with my mother. We sat down and had a meeting with Hugh about like what my layout would look like, and we were on totally separate pages. I wanted to look like a little fairy. I wanted to be like a little fairy in a garden, and he was like, no, you're gonna be like in a bed. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, then probably not. But he respected it. And so I don't know, every time we went there, and until later, I was always with my mom when I was there. And then until later, he just had a respect. He just was always very kind to me. So did I see salacious things going on? Sure. Did I care? No, because that's going to happen anywhere in at every nightclub. And I don't really care. I just went there to have fun and enjoy his grounds. I mean, what a beautiful home he had.
Yeah.
So, my stories for the Playboy Mansion are boring.
Well, what's funny? I had Jennifer Saganor on my show who did that, was involved with that Playboy docuseries that they did.
Uh-huh.
And she famously lived at the Playboy Mansion when she was young because her
Uh-huh.
dad was best friends with Hugh. And she came on my show to tell everybody that they took her stories, some of which were obviously scandalous, but like really took them out of context.
Uh,
And she was like, I had many wonderful times at the Playboy Mansion. But when you watch the docuseries, you think I was like abused in a corner in the mansion somewhere, like crying. It just wasn't the
oh.
case. So they took her stories and they put a negative light and spin on them. And what came out was not at all what was, she went through. It really upset her.
Well, that's too bad. I don't, that's unfortunate. Yeah, I don't know the story, so I don't have anything to say about it, but that's always unfortunate. I hate when stories get twisted. It's
Yeah.
do. And so I hate that part.
Well, this brings me to another thing I had to talk to you about, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I used to do some sponsorship deal stuff with Scott Carlson, who's Corey Feldman's manager, or
Okay.
was. Okay. And I don't think he is anymore, but they might do stuff from time to time. And I love Corey. My experience with Corey Feldman was always really nice. I used to hang out with him a little bit here and there in Sundance. And, I love Scott, right? His manager. And what happened was I found out later that Corey Feldman had done a movie, and the movie was making these allegations that Charlie Sheen
Yeah.
had R-word Corey Haim, which is what sent him down the spiral. This was on the set, I think, of Lucas, and sent him on the spiral of some of the issues that came out with him in terms of drugs and other stuff. And so I was wondering, because I found out that you were engaged to Corey Haim, which I had no idea until we did this. I was in shock. By the way, huge Corey Haim fan. Two Coreys, ran the 80s, ran it. They were A-list actors at that time, and I love them. And I'm devastated at what ended up happening to Corey. And I just wanted your take. Do you feel that that is a true story, or what do you feel about that?
Okay, so I can only speak for like my experience, right? And I met Corey Feldman when I was such a young child. Obviously, we ran in the same circles. It was like Drew Barrymore, Alyssa Milano, Corey Feldman. It was all of us, and we were all together all the time trying to just like live some kind of normal childhood. Scott Grimes, a lot of people. And then Corey Haim showed up on the scene from Canada doing Lucas, and we all became fast friends. And so there were some weird moments with Corey Haim that I wasn't sure like what was going on. He got really very much into music. One night I saw him putting on eyeliner and I said, "Where are you going?" And he was like, I'm gonna go meet, so and so and so. And I was like, "You need eyeliner?" Because this was way before like that was the typical or you know,
Yeah.
this was a little bit shocking. And I was like, okay. Then later we dated. We were 13 years old for God's sakes. And then later on, we worked together, Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, and myself worked together, and we were away in Canada for months on end. And listen, Haim expressed some secrets to me and some deep, dark secrets and about his abuse and what had happened to him. Charlie Sheen's name never came up. And that's all I
Wow.
can say. That's just all I can say. That Dominic, who was a guy he was like in a horror movie. He was an actor. He was the one that Haim had told me was abusing him. And, these are like pillow talk moments. So I had never heard Charlie Sheen being the abuser. But if Corey Feldman says it, then I feel like we have to embrace that and listen to it. But what I can say from my side is that Haim never said that to me.
But I know that there was also other people in the industry that Corey Feldman called out that impacted Haim. And I just don't remember who they are right now, which is awful because I should call those awful people out.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. So besides Charlie Sheen, it was Marty Weiss, John Grissom, and Alfie Hoffman.
Yeah, but what I will say from being really close with Haim and really talking about it, it was Dominic that really kind of turned his life upside down. There was not a lot of other names. We did go to a lot of parties that were called the Alfie Soda Pop parties, and they were the New York Seltzer. They were put on by Randy Seltzer. There were these parties, and the weird part is, and Alyssa and I, on a recent podcast of mine, we talk about it and we're like, oh my God, our parents dropped us off and we're like, okay, we'll pick you up at like 10, midnight, whatever. But the problem is that these men weren't preying on us, they were preying on the boys.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
so us girls were, strangely, we were safe, and we went in and out of there. We danced, we had so much fun. We did whatever we did. It was the boys that were being abused. And it's heartbreaking, it's really sad.
It's totally heartbreaking because, the predators get the parents' trust, and the parents also, in some cases, make a percentage of what their kids make because they're managing them and they're making a lot of money, right? Because they're stars. And so they don't want to rock the ship. And some of these people are in positions of power, and the parents want to trust them.
Yeah.
They want to believe that they're putting their kids in safe hands and that this is a networking opportunity for them and this and that. It's going to be great for the family or the kid, especially poorer kids, because a lot of actors that come in, they aren't from wealthy families. They do become the primary breadwinner. And
Right.
then these predators take advantage of the kids. They give them alcohol. Oh, you're 14. It's okay. You could take a sip. Don't worry. I won't tell. Then you lose your judgment. You're like, and something could happen, and then you're ashamed and you don't want to talk about it, or the person's too important to talk about it because they'll end your career, So it's
Yeah. And then there's like the sleepovers. But you also have to understand there's people like Scott Grimes, who's a great friend of mine, always was a great friend of mine, comes from a great family. His parents also dropped him off there. He actually remade the Baywatch song for me because he's like one of the most fantastic singers I've heard in a long time. Like, I knew he was the only one that could carry that song. And again, he was dropped off there, but didn't get involved in any of that. So I think that when there are predators, they just know which kids to go after. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
they know who to go after, and who to leave alone.
It's so interesting to me. So, you got engaged to Corey Haim, and then what happened? Why didn't that end up going to a marriage situation?
Well, listen, I don't want to hurt his mom, and I don't want to hurt his sister,
Okay.
because this is a super touchy topic. But we worked together, and he proposed, and I thought, okay, we've known each other for so long. We understand each other. We're in the same industry. Why not give it a shot, right? And we moved back to LA. We left Canada. We came back to LA, and he moved into my place, and it was dark. It was dark. It wasn't what I thought. It wasn't the same guy I saw on set. He was using. Um, and listen, I love Judy. I love Carrie. I love them. And I know that Corey did not die from an overdose. Like, that's not what happened. So I
I
want
know
to
that too. I know that
I want
too.
to I want to protect that. But for me at that time, it just wasn't what I was looking for, and it wasn't it seemed very unhealthy for me. So when we got back to my place, and it was like light, all the shades are closed and the lights are off and the air conditioner is on, and it's just like, anybody that knows me, I have like all the windows open, everything's open, like I'm like, look at the hummingbirds, I'm feeding all the birds, like I'm that person. So when it wasn't that, and it didn't change, and he didn't want to change it, I felt really sad. And I said, well, you're gonna have to like go home to your mom, and like, let's figure this out later, but go home, go be with your mom, who can care for you and love you. And that's kind of where it ended for us.
I'm so sorry that you went through that, and I'm sorry for him and his family. It's just
Yeah.
tragic. And whoever did this, to Corey, I really hope that they struggle deeply inside forever and rot.
I think he died. I think he died, and I think that's the best thing we can ask for.
Well,
So he can't do this to other children.
we won't
Um,
be mourning that guy.
Not mourning that guy. Mm-mm.
All right. Well, thank you for being so honest. I'm sure that was not the easiest conversation to have, but it meant a lot to me. So thank you. I wanted to tell you that. Okay, so I have a theory about Pam Anderson's sex tape I want to tell you.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So I know that it came out in Daily Mail and all these things that the person who stole Pam Anderson's sex tape was a construction guy who then brought it to some other guy who blew open the safe or whatever because he took the safe and he brought it to this guy with connections and he blew open the safe and then he sold it to, in Europe. And then eventually it gets leaked out in the States, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of people don't know that Rick Solomon, who well, I know you know too,
Where you're
uh,
going.
Rick Solomon was involved in a sex tape scandal, okay, which was
One, just one. He's been involved in plenty.
exactly. And I believe that Rick Solomon somehow orchestrated Pamela Anderson losing that sex tape because Rick was dating, Paris, you know this, but also he was dating Pam Anderson. He ends up, like, I think getting married to her at one point or another. And
I
he,
think they got married twice, didn't they? Did they? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they got married twice.
okay, so they get married twice. I'm telling the story more from like less from the news and more from my understanding of Rick, my feeling
Yep.
about Rick. But Rick stuck around Pam and
Mhm.
he didn't just break up with her and that was it. See you later. We don't talk anymore. He was around. And there was a lot of ties between him and people I dated and Paris. They all kind of dated around the same people. And I noticed that Pam and Paris were both dated by guys I dated that were friends with Rick. So I wondered if Rick could have been the one to orchestrate that tape being taken because it's just too much of a coincidence for me. And he was way more a likely candidate than some random construction guy that walks into that house. And Pam would have told him about that tape, or like at least maybe they would have joked around about it, maybe in front of him. I don't know. That to me is a better story.
Okay. Well, listen, Rick, if you're listening, we met many years ago, way before all of this in New Jersey. We spent time in the Hamptons, before any of this, before even Baywatch was a thing, I think. What I'm gonna say is that I know there are interviews with Tommy Lee saying that they sold the tape. I know that Bobby Brown, if you know who she is, she has an interview that says she knows they sold the tape. I'm not mad at them for selling the tape. Like it's like a Kim Kardashian situation. Like who cares at any that was what was happening in those times. I got offers. I will kid you not. I had offers to do a sex tape and sell it, and these were the numbers and this is what it could look like, and I just was like, is this a joke? Because you're coming at me like this is some sort of like record deal. Like the sex tape. Like, so it's weird. So on one hand, I don't want to go against Pam as far as if she thinks it was really stolen from her. I feel bad for her because I don't believe it was. And I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say it. I don't think it was. How could it have been?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just feel like Rick being involved somehow is,
Uh yeah.
it's
And
just,
then she remarried him again
yeah.
after the whole sex tape thing. And listen, Rick has been nothing but a nice guy to me too. I again, I'm like, I know what Rick does. I know he's a bookie. I know he's this. I know he's that. He's a gambler. He
Oh
does.
my God, you know, like me. Okay, good. I was afraid to say it. I love it. Yes,
I'm
yes.
not mad at him
He's
about
not a
it.
producer. He's not a producer. I mean, maybe later with the money he made from the sex tapes, he became a producer.
Maybe, maybe. I like him. Like I've never disliked him. He's never done anything to me to dislike him. But I think he's a smart business guy. I think he knows how to make money. I think I just think he's like, on that dark web kind of smart. Let's make money.
I love it.
Far as Pam goes, I don't know what her role was in it because I want to believe her that she was unaware, but that's a hard one. That's a hard pill to swallow. I just if that was me and I had sex tapes, I'm pretty sure they would be under my care and nobody would be able to get them.
Yeah, something's weird. Maybe Tommy did because he loves that damn sex tape. Have you heard him talk about it? Tommy Lee?
And God bless him. He should. Look at him.
Look at his wee wee.
Look at that. And I haven't even watched the sex tape, but I'm telling you, he's a sexy guy, right? Like he's a sexy guy. She's a gorgeous woman. Like who wouldn't want to watch this? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you guys were all gorgeous, really, truly. I can't get over it. I know I started the show with this. Nicole, you seriously, my gosh, like wow, you got lucked out in the looks department totally. Just saying.
Wow. You know, I lack in some other departments, so it's a trade-off. It's okay.
Okay, so I have a question to do with Kyle Richards. You must have known her in the acting stuff, right?
Well, what's weird is that I knew Kyle Richards from Little House on the Prairie. Like we were all really little kids. So, and we all spent a lot of time out in Malibu. And when she came to support me, I just felt really, I don't know. It touched me. I thought it was really amazing. I thought it was very kind. Her and Bethany both, and Bethany's boyfriend at the time, they all really kind of came to my defense, and they really supported me. And I don't know how else to say it. It's just that like I was taken aback by the kindness.
I understand. I was really impressed by Bethany and Kyle. I'm pretty critical, you know, in my commentary just because of the way my personality sometimes, but Kyle Richards was very fun socially on the show, not so much for me, but certainly in our, off the show, she was one of the people that I loved the most, who I shot with on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills in the early seasons. I loved her sister Kim too. And I know Kyle's heart is really good. The fans are really hard on her because maybe they're just, when you're on TV for as long as Kyle is, they kind of just like, please, let's take this woman out, at all costs, because that's just the way fans are. But I saw that Kyle had significantly supported you. And I also wanted to ask you about this. You have been going through cancer treatment and something came out that like SAG's health insurance or whatever wasn't covering the full cost of the treatment or something. What was this?
Okay, so here's the thing, right? So like I don't have SAG insurance. I have spent I always invested well. So I sold some properties to raise my youngest, who's 13 now. I said, I just like, I'm a single mom, 100% single mom. I'm not one of these moms who's like, oh, I'm a single mom, but then the dad pays all the bills or the dad picks them up on the weekends. No, 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 no. I am a 100% single mom. So when I cashed in, I said, I'm just going to take care of my kid. This is like, it was more important to me to spend time with my children than to work. I wanted to be both parents. I wanted to give her everything I could. And then I got diagnosed and I was like, well, uh-oh. We had been living 13 years off, me cashing in on my properties. And I just was like, okay, this is wild. I don't know how this is going to happen. And what people don't understand is that you have to make payments every month to insurance. Otherwise, they're not going to cover you. I don't care what your diagnosis is. They're going to drop you if you don't make your monthly payment. There's also things that like I feel that are more important or as important as chemo. There are things you can do outside of medical that are expensive. All the juju things, all the supplements, all the things that are outside of the medical realm,
Yeah.
that are not prescribed but are showing to work, like in Europe and other places. There's all of that. There's childcare. I mean, how do you pay? I want you, like, let somebody do the math. I'm at a hospital 6 days a week. Pay that bill, that parking pass bill. I mean, you're talking about thousands. You're talking about so much money, and I can't be hired. I am not going to be covered by insurance because I've been diagnosed with cancer. So nobody's hiring me. I'm just like left out in the cold. I'm left on my own. And that's a scary, scary feeling. And I don't live beyond my means. So people can sit there and say that, like, oh, she did this, she did that, blah, blah, blah. No, 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 no. I live in a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom apartment in a duplex in a nice neighborhood. But because my child wants to go to school here, and I do this for her. I don't know what else. I can't drive most of the time when I'm on chemo. So like somebody has to drive her. So I have to pay somebody to do that.
Yeah.
Uh, Once I have my surgery, I can't drive for 6 weeks. So somebody's going to have to drive me. I'm not allowed to touch my animals. I'm not allowed to feed them or pick up their feces. I'm not allowed to clean or touch those kind of chemicals. Like, where does all this money come from?
Wow, I never knew any of this. But I mean, wait, can I just say this to you though? You acted so much. Don't they put like a fund together for you for your insurance, at least? Like for real
No.
actors like you? Like you're real. Like, you're not like, oh, I did like a minute of acting. You like years and years of acting.
Oh
And-
no, babe. I have a retirement fund. Yes. If I were to cash in on it before I'm 65 or 66 years old, I lose a huge amount of it. So no, I can't cash in on any of that.
But
It's
just the
it's
health,
about
they don't do like
no, they don't
that's
do that.
shocking.
And,
That's
and
stupid. They should
no,
do that.
California doesn't help people. If I had like a desk job, which I wish I did, if I had a desk job where I could work from home and then maybe like still work, that'd be great. But I cannot show up on camera bald, bleeding out of my nose most of the time, just gaining all this weight that the steroids are doing. I look a little crazy sometimes. Sometimes I look great. Sometimes I look crazy. Sometimes I can't get out of bed. So, what job lets you,
Do that.
what job accommodates that?
Well, not this job because entertainment, they don't even let you get old. Never mind
No,
get cancer.
thank you.
So, well,
Yeah.
I want to say this. I think that, SAG and all of these unions, when people work and they have, these big network paying jobs where you're on like a network series for years or movie, big movies, they should take a percentage or something that like will last the lifetime of the actor because a lot of actors spans are very short. It's like 10 years and then what do you do? I don't know. It just feels like you kind of fall off a cliff and it's hard to be famous and have a regular job because people don't accept it,
They don't. But you're talking about corporations, right? So they only work a certain way. And if you cash in early, you lose so much. I'd rather just die and leave it all to my kids.
Oh my God, stop it. We're never letting that
No, but that's
happen.
the facts. Like, if you really want to think about it, why am I going to cash in and use it when I could just leave this to my kids? Like, it's just, it's a really weird thing. And the state of California, I don't know how it is anywhere else. They don't help you. They don't care that you can't work, you can't get to work, you can't drive, you can't even get yourself out of bed. Also, don't forget, I had to hire caregivers that come in and help me so that they watch me. I don't fall down in the shower. I don't fall down my stairs. If there's a case of an emergency where we had to evacuate, there has to be somebody here. None of that is covered. That's all out of my pocket.
Gosh, that's so crazy.
Crazy.
It is so crazy. Because you have had such a career. I mean, your career has been awesome. I was just so impressed as I looked through it, and you're a great actress. And I heard you went on Botched, which I thought was really funny. What was that like? Did you go to Adrienne Malouf's husband? I filmed with her.
No, who I went to was Terry Dubrow. And I said, I want to get a boob reduction. Like, can you help me out with that? Because for me, I was always so flat chested when I was younger. And as I got older, I grew all this breast tissue and there was implants in there. And all of a sudden I had these huge, like double D boobs. So I said, Terry, I want a reduction. Can you help me? And he goes, yeah, I can help you, but why don't you do my show? I'll pay you. I'll pay you and to get the boob reduction. And you're not going to look crazy because all you're getting is a boob reduction. And instead of like spending money, I'll pay you and you get paid to get your boob reduction. And so I was like, okay, cool, fine, let's go.
Oh my God, that's a great deal.
Deal. It's a great deal. Come on.
Oh no. Okay, I need a facelift. Okay, I think my
Yeah.
face is right now botched.
Oh, I don't think so. I think you look really gorgeous. Like, I don't know what you're seeing.
Oh, you're so good. Thank you for saying that. As I get older, I really struggle with it. I do. It's
Well,
really
I
hard.
know a doctor. His name is Dr. Truesdale. He's in Beverly Hills, right off Rodeo. Go tell him that I told you to go there. Look him up on social media. Dr. Truesdale, he is phenomenal. Go look at what he's doing. He's really ahead of the game. You don't even have to go under. He can do surgery while you're right there in the office, and his work is fantastic. So that's my piece of advice. If you feel like you've got a little issue or whatever, go talk to Truesdale.
Yeah, I need a little tightening up here. I will tell you, I tried Botox in the neck, and
Yeah.
boy, did that work a treat. I was like, why haven't I been doing this for like the last 3 years? It came out so good.
You'll have to tell me more about that. Right now I have tubes, that go up into my neck, that go into my jugulars.
What?
Yes. So I have a port in my chest, and then there are tubes that go up into my jugulars so that that's where they can put the chemo. So I have tubes that go up in there. I can't mess around with my neck right now at all.
Well, okay. First of all, let's talk forward thinking. You're going to get through this. It's going to be great. And
Mhm.
we're going to talk about Botox around the neck in the future
Yeah.
for you. Okay. Instead of this awful thing you're going through. I'm so sorry. Nicole, I struggle with it as I'm talking with you, just trying to be positive and keep it light, so you're not dreading this conversation. And at the same time, knowing that you're going through, I don't even know what you're going through. Actually, the more you talk, I realize the more I have romanticized cancer in some way in my head, that it's not as bad as it is. And it's horrific. It's
Yeah.
beyond.
It's horrible. I'm right now and as we talk, all I keep doing is checking my phone. I'm waiting for my MRI results because I need to know if I get to have surgery on the 17th. I need to make sure it hasn't spread. And it sucks. I mean, it sucks. I'm climbing the walls in my house. I'm pacing around. I don't even know what it looks like if they say it spread. I don't know. This is not a fun disease. I'm just starting to work with the American Cancer Society, so hopefully we're going to spread some news and some information and get people more aware of like how crazy this is.
I want you to. I want you to. I didn't and know you told me that if you get the opportunity to be able to get this surgery and you're able to get your mastectomy, that your chest is numb.
Yeah. That was the part I didn't. That's the part I wasn't aware of. So yeah, you no longer have feeling from like around your back, like around your back and to your forward, like like your lats in the back, all the way around to the front, you will never have feeling ever again. Which, listen, I got really upset about it for a while and I was like crying and blah blah blah. And when I look at the big picture, I'm like, well, yeah, you're gonna have numb cold tits, but you get to live.
Yeah.
So, there's that part. So
I'm
it's
so proud of you though. You're really a rock star. I mean, who the hell has cancer as a single mom? I'm like you, by the way. I'm like true blue single mom, no support on my own, alienated, crazy a-hole ex. Well, you may not have a crazy a-hole ex, but I have that part
I have a
too.
couple of them. I have a couple of them. It's okay. We can yeah.
Oh, gee, I've got like a nut job in my past. I guess, you're going through all this stuff with cancer. You're trying to raise your kids. You're trying to do a show you did a docu-series. You're doing podcasts. That's really inspiring because I hear that, when you're in this type of situation, the worst thing you can do is do nothing because you go crazy. So
Yeah.
like if you can like keep busy and not focus on it, it can be helpful. But I'm so like inspired by your work ethic in this situation you're in.
Well, I don't have a choice, babe. It's like it's that or go crazy and climb the walls. So these $25,000 sunglasses, do you still have them?
Do I still have them? Not with me, but yes, I still have them.
Okay, good. Because I mean that was such a viral moment. And
Yes.
that I think that everybody remembers that shit more than they remember a lot of other things from that season.
Well, you know what it was? The story behind the did you know $25,000 glasses was the producers, I think, figured out in season 1. I was involved in another big scene that was like a highlight kind of positive moment. They have the negative moments that are really popular and then the positive moments that are really popular.
Yeah.
And there was another positive moment, and that was the $60,000 4-year-old birthday party that Taylor Armstrong has for her
Yeah.
kid. A lot of people don't know that's me who does that event for Taylor because I was brunette and pregnant, okay? And
Oh.
Taylor introduces me and says, my really good friend Dana Wilkey is doing this over the top birthday for me because she does Oscar gifting suites and movie premieres and all these things. And I have to get the best of the best. So I'm bringing her in. And so I produced this Alice in Wonderland themed thing at, this is going to really bring you way back at the, what's the magician's Houdini Mansion. At the
Yeah.
Houdini Mansion.
Yeah.
Yeah. We used to have tons of parties at the Houdini Mansion on Laurel Canyon. Anyway, so we rented out that, and that's actually where that birthday takes place. So I realized early on that was something the fans really liked. These over the top moments were really
These things that they wouldn't normally be exposed to, right? It's like it's things they're seeing that they wouldn't know existed if you guys didn't introduce it.
correct.
Quite
And so I was thinking about like fun things to cover me in my life at this time. And so, you throw out different ideas to the producers. And so I had thrown out this idea. I was like, this new trend happening in Beverly Hills of these over the top jeweled glasses that are crazy. And
I
I
want
think,
a pair. Like
yeah.
I'll take a fake pair. I'll take a man, like what do they call it? Like lab made ones. I'll take a pair. I wear glasses every day of my life. I'm a blind bat. So I need fun glasses. So I wouldn't mind imitating yours.
Okay, well, I have something to tell you about that too. A girl talk about your eye issue. But what I was going to say is that I said there's this new trend and people are getting these outrageous glasses, and there's a new vendor in town doing this, and they're called Luxuriator. And people have never known where the glasses came from. So I'm now telling you where they came from. They were this company, Luxuriator, and he specialized in these one of the kind glasses. And, they would go from 25,000 to, I guess, like 50,000. Little did you know that mine were like the bottom of the barrel.
Well, I mean, they were gorgeous. Who cares?
So they watched me buy them and everything on the show. They filmed all that, but they didn't end up showing it because the guy I was referring to earlier wouldn't sign the release because turns out he had a double life and was cheating on me. But at the time, none of the fans knew that, nor did I. So they didn't show that part. But then they ended up showing a part where I go in and are talking about the glasses. So the producer said to me, make sure you tell every single girl at the party about the glasses. So I said, sure. All right.
Oh, okay. Okay. I got it. So that's why you're like, these glasses. Yeah. Oh my God. It makes perfect sense.
So I went up to every single one and I had to keep coming up with new ways to say it to people, right? So the fun there.
Yeah. And awkward because you're like, oh, look how expensive I am.
Exactly. And, the women were all at this time, they were, they were more showy than anybody, but, they felt like, I don't know, they felt like they were more powerful maybe because they were from bigger families or celebrity or whatever. So I was kind of the underdog coming in anyway, right? And so I think the producers thought that was like a cool angle, because you hear Camille later like, oh, if you have money, you don't say it. And so.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have 50 million other questions for you, but I'm going to break it down to two because I want to talk about the reality reckoning because Bethany Frankel, what she's doing and what we all know she's doing and making her waves. Give me your honest opinion. Do you think it's worth it? Like she should be doing that? Like there should be a union? Or do you think that that everybody's just getting paid fairly and they know what they signed up for? Or I want to hear your take on it.
So the reality reckoning is somehow attached to Bethany Frankel, but it really isn't really Bethany Frankel. She's just kind of the front person for this movement. What it is a bunch of reality stars that are suing different production companies and networks because they feel that the networks and production companies took advantage of them for one reason or another. There's multiple reasons and scenarios related to the reality reckoning over years. And so my take on it is that you shouldn't be able to sign your image, everything, for perpetuity in every jurisdiction, including, international, for a small flat amount of money when those things didn't exist at the time that you signed the contract.
Right.
Okay. So if the scenario isn't feasible at the time that you signed your agreement, they shouldn't be able to enforce it to that degree. And that is a lot of the complaints about the contracts, because in the early years of reality television, you were paid a really measly salary, a flat fee, and they essentially made hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising and everything across platforms. Hey You, Peacock, BravoCon, I'm using Bravo, for example, Bravo itself, the website, promos, I mean, all sorts of things. And at the time that you signed these, those weren't even possible. It was a show that was going to air like once. Okay. It was not syndicated. It wasn't going to happen. So like for you, you couldn't fathom what this was going to become. And you were paid $2. And the thing is with the fans, every time a new audience member watches a show, they come at you like for the first time. Okay. So there are people that are villains on these shows and, for 20 years, they're being attacked about it, not just one time 10 years ago. So it's very difficult for them. And I think the agreements, certain aspects of them should have been deemed illegal. That's my take. And they should be rethought through and compensated on the past agreements. Now, there's other things which are a different aspect of the reality reckoning, which is things that are wrongdoings. And what is a wrongdoing? Allowing sexual harassment to happen to a person for good TV, allowing a male character, for example, to assault in any other situation a reality star on camera and not have the producer step in and stop it.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. And that's a different level of the reality reckoning, which is at what point does the producers have a responsibility to step in and say, you've got a drinking problem, you shouldn't be drinking on the show anymore, instead of, here's a free bar, let's see you get really drunk this time and fall flat on your face for good TV, right? So that's a little, that's a different conversation that's occurring there. And then, you know, you add to it that there's all these reality stars at different levels, from super, super famous to not that famous, but they still have to deal with sort of the aspects of it. And those people have no protection. So I actually recently had a situation come up, to give you an idea, where Shed Media, who produces Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, wanted to license about 30 seconds or 45 seconds of one of my YouTube videos that I did that was gossip, because I do gossip on YouTube about this type of thing. And so they sent me a contract, and they first offered me 0 guarantee for exposure, and I would just give them the clip like a clearance. And I said to them, are you out of your minds? I've done, like, I used to be in product placement. Give me a break. Like, I've done over 100 movies product placement. That's like a side thing a lot of people don't know I did. Okay. So I was like, you're crazy. That's not happening. So what ended up occurring is I came back and I said, I want at least some exposure. I want, you know, something. And they were like, well, we'll offer you a special thanks credit, and maybe we could show your logo, but we won't say what we'll show. And I thought about it, and I said, you know what, send me the contract. So they send me the contract. The contract is from a subsidiary of Shed, not Shed. And Shed is a subsidiary of, like, you know, NBC, and NBC or Bravo. And then Bravo's a subsidiary of NBC. So in other words, there's no way you're going to sue, because there's all these layers of companies in between you and the people that are distributing the product. So what I realized is I was about to do the exact same mistake that I did before, right? Thank God the reality reckoning kind of was in my mind, because I thought, I'm not going to do this again. So I went back, and do you know, Nicole, I asked for $3,500, which is like an appearance fee in Bravo's landscape. Like, if you go and make an appearance, it's paid. It is so cheap, flat. That's it. To give them the rights of this 30-second clip for perpetuity. And by the way, it's a key point. That's some tea for you. In the upcoming season of the show, it's a key plot point. They're going to have to now reshoot it and have the women pretend it's something else or whatever. But they wouldn't give me it. They ghosted me.
Oh, that's wild.
$3,500. This is a hit show. 2 million downloads. So, I mean, reality reckoning, boy, do we need it. We need it. And we need a union. You know, SAG, if you're listening, we need one. Influencers need one. And so do reality TV stars, because the network doesn't care. They're just going to exploit everybody. And it's not right. It's just not right.
Okay, so way back when, way before there was reality TV, but there was The Bachelor. Mike Fleiss and his company came to me and they said, do you want to do like a reality show, and you're going to get paid this amount of money? And it was a large amount of money. But the issue was, you don't get to know what you're walking into. And I was like, well, what is it called? And they were like, The Real Gilligan's Island. And I said, okay, I'm down, because if there's anybody that's going to live on an island, it's going to be me. I'm all for it. I'm here for it. Let's go. You know, I showed up. I did the job. It was way more sketchy than it should have been. There was a medic on set who would sneak in at night and tell me, like, just get off the show as quick as you can, because there's a hotel we all get to stay at. There's a resort. And he's like, there's snakes everywhere. There's panthers everywhere. There's like all these things. And I was like, okay, so let's do that. And they starved us, but it looked like the Gilligan's Island. So I was like super excited about it, because I was like, Gilligan's Island was child growing up. I was like, I love this show. I want to live like that. Like I could live like that. So Mike Fleiss, in hindsight, treated us very well. And Sally Ann Solano was next in line. She does New Jersey. She does all those Jersey kids. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So she was like on the lower levels. I really grew to like her. I didn't like her at first. I was pissed at her, but we really grew to like each other. I think I appreciate what she does. And I think that there's certain shows where they do treat their cast very well. And I'm surprised. I was really actually surprised when Bethany came out and said, this needs to happen, that needs to happen. And I just was like, wow. But I think that they were relying on the fact that you guys were all very wealthy.
I mean, they
As an
weren't.
audience perspective, they were all like, well, these are all like really wealthy women. So, like, who gives a shit?
Well, I think what happened was that they were like the studios were back in the old days in the 50s, and they
Yeah.
recognized that they were going to take somebody who had zero value in entertainment and give them tons of value, like they did with all the starlets.
Yeah.
And because they made you into a starlet, they were going to own you or own at least as much of you as they possibly could.
Yeah.
Because without them, you were nothing.
Yeah.
And they didn't care if you went broke or lived or died or whatever happened, doesn't matter. You were a commodity.
Yeah.
And that is what reality TV production companies and networks thought of reality stars. And so, whether we were wealthy or poor or young and pregnant or whatever the theme was of the show, right? Because we weren't
Yeah.
existing stars. Remember, you were probably brought on this Gilligan show as a ex Baywatch star or somebody that was already established.
Yeah.
In the case of this, that is not what's happening. And generally speaking, there aren't agent and managers even negotiating these contracts with people because they're not famous before they're brought in. So these networks say a way to build someone into being famous that they control and own, and for nothing. So if you as a SAG actor can relate to what happened to your peers in the 40s and 50s, when you learn the history of Hollywood and you're like, thank God they changed that. Thank God they're a SAG. Thank God the studios don't own us anymore. All those things, then you know what the reality stars are going through right now and for the last 10 years.
Right. Which brings me to my question, because so all the reunion shit, right? So they, they really make it's intense. I'm not aware, but I would say you guys have a 16, 18-hour day on set for
It's
a reunion.
Yeah, it's very long. Yeah, it's a really long day.
Hardcore. It's like a really like I mean, you're in the hot seat for hours, and I just don't so I would like you to tell me a little bit about that, because we all look at it, we know it's hard. I understand it completely that you're probably there for fucking 18, 20 hours, and they're just pushing you, pushing you, pushing you. So what was your experience, and like what did you think of it all? Were you surprised?
Well, I was lucky because they used me for a focused segment during the reunion, but I had to get there when everybody started. I had to sit the whole day and, until the end of the thing. So, I mean, I can tell you that it was a grueling day. It was long. It's always emotional. I was lucky because the way they used me was they brought me in for like I think it ended up being like an hour and 20 minutes of shooting, but like they narrow it down to a smaller amount, and then they featured me versus the whole gamut of I think 3 parts was the season that I was on in that capacity. And I guess what I learned about it is it's very tiring. You get very emotional. You end up being hungry.
Yeah.
You're just
Angry.
you're hangry. There's a lot of dynamics with Andy Cohen that people don't see, where you feel like he's like more up someone's ass than another person. And there's jealousy amongst the cast members about like where they're seated and how Andy Cohen is treating them. And that's a really real thing. And it does plague you during your performance. You're trying to get him to be happy with you Also, all the producers are watching, and you have a giant room of crew around. It's a lot. It's one of the biggest productions you experience being on Housewives that is not reality like. Um, like it's more like a TV show. So some people also don't do well in that environment versus like shooting a reality show where there's cameras in your house. It's very different.
It is very different, but what I want to like give tribute to you is that you kind of turned it around, like you're featured on so many pop culture, like if it's,
Train
uh,
wreck scene.
specials. Yeah, no, it's like there's specials, right? Like you really kind of have turned it from being part of the cast to now being kind of a expert on what's going on, and
Yeah.
you really help the audience understand, and I think we all appreciate that. So how did that happen? Like how did that work out for you? Like how did you make that transition?
Well, I think there was a moment where I said, I really want to have my voice back. Okay. And so it was during COVID. I was sitting at home and people were telling me that there's this whole world out there, social media, which I hadn't really been a part of. I was on like Twitter or now X for that was it. Back in my time on the show, season 1, 2, and 3 of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, there wasn't a big social media push. There was blogging and all this stuff. So I found out that, years later, it turns out that a lot of the scenes that people hated us for back at that time loved us now for them. And they were iconic and they just completely embraced them. And so I was like, wow, there's really a demand for a platform around this. And there was a lot of secrets surrounding the seasons I was involved with. There are some Season 2 was, I don't know if it still is the last 2 years, but it was the most watched season of all time on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. There was a lot of firsts that happened, tragic firsts, but it was a very tumultuous season. And, someone took their life. There's a lot to it. I don't know how much you know about the early seasons, but
You do. I mean, I've been a fan from the beginning.
oh, I love it. Nicole, I'm a huge fan of yours too, by the way. So I just, the thing is that I looked at this and I said, here's an opportunity for people to really, I think, get to the bottom of some of the secrets. And I saw something that bothered me, which was people were looking at social media and they were romanticizing reality TV, and they were calling some people evil or villains and bad, and they were calling other people great and look at her life and I wish I had that. And I realized that it was just a very big lie. And I felt like in the current climate of social media, the time for the lie was over. It served its purpose. It brought people entertainment value, but actually in the current climate, people want the truth.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? It's time. I'm going to come out and I'm going to tell the truth. And I'm going to do something that a lot of the Bravo celebrities struggle with. I'm going to just come out of the shoot with, I accept that the relationship with Bravo is over, no matter how iconic my scenes were. And that dangling of the carrot that they hold over you for 10 years, where you think they're going to call and they're going to bring you back, or you're going to get you on Ultimate Girls Trip, or they're going to put you in on a crossover, or they're going to do something with you. I'm going to let that go and free myself of it. And I'm going to tell the straight up truth, the no bullshit, don't care if I hurt anybody's feelings truth of what happened and what is currently happening. And I started to do that on my social media, and it grew and it became very popular. And then I realized, wow, there's a real audience for this. And I expanded it into my own podcast on a Patreon and a YouTube channel. And people got really into it. And what was really good, I think, for some of the people on the shows is no one had been telling what was going on from like the true behind the scenes perspective, which is really important because there were a lot of people that were, considered heroes of the show, and they were villains behind the scenes. And there was a lot of villains on the show that were actually set up, by producers.
Nah, listen, I get it. I was on a show called Baywatch, and David Hasselhoff could you could label him as a villain, for sure.
Wait, until he ate that cheeseburger off the floor. What a humbling moment.
And we never talked about it, and he wasn't willing to talk about it, but it exists. And listen, we all have our faults. We all like have bad moments. I'm not shaming him for that, but he didn't want to share that. And that was a little bit of a disappointment. But forget him. Let's talk about us. Go back to us. I have a question for you. If you have, do you have any regrets doing it? Like, would you have done anything differently, or are you just happy the way it turned out? And the second part of the question is what future things are you doing besides this podcast you're doing, and anything else you have going on? But two-part question.
So the answer to that is sometimes I do impact series for ABC News, like your docuseries. And I also was in the Shaw Shocker, which was about the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Jen Shaw, when she got arrested,
Yeah,
on television. That was a first.
yeah.
And so I was on the Shaw Shocker, and I was on Housewives and the Hustler, which covered the very famous Tom Girardi case, and that all going down on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So I still do those types of things. And I don't know. I don't know what the future is going to bring. Right now, I'm really excited about my platform. I love my shows. They do really, really well. They allow me to say, whatever I want to say in the way I want to say it. And boy, is that freeing when when you know what I'm talking about, Nicole. I know you
Yeah,
do.
I do. And you know what I want to say is I'm so happy to talk to you. And I feel like there's not a lot of people you can speak so candidly with, and you're one of those people. So I appreciate you.
Well,
And
thank you.
I hope we get to do this again sometime. And I hope I just get to see you in person and like give you a big hug. Yeah, this has been everything for me. I love you. I've followed you, and my audience is obviously going to be really like happy to hear from you. So
And Nicole, me, you, I am definitely doing another show with you, whatever. I'm like, we have so much more tea to unpack. I don't think we should be afraid of the truth because, people live in the gray. The time of people being, good or bad or all
yeah,
that, it's over.
yeah,
The
those days
situation,
are over.
yeah,
Yeah,
the situation is gray. Let's cut the crap, everybody, and let's just talk about it. And let's learn from all the crazy experiences that we all had. I mean, I think that's way more interesting than trying to pretend we're, Betty Crocker. Does anyone even know who Betty Crocker is anymore?
or Holly Hobby, like the Holly Hobby, like
That was my bedroom theme when I was little.
I like the Holly Hobby like cookies, cooking, baking thing. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yes.
I loved it. Oh my God. But I think we need to get real about these things. And, unfortunately, life is dirty and people are dirty and it just is what it is. But let's talk about it. And I'm willing to do that a lot more with you. I have a load of secrets to tell you more about Bravo and all of that. And I do want to say my one regret about doing Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And that regret was that the pretenses that I came in under, which a lot of people don't know this, but the producers wanted me to out my best friend's abuse on the show, and I
Yeah.
didn't do it, which is why I lost an opportunity with that. And anyway, she ended up doing me dirty later. That's not the regret part, but I regret that I didn't come in on a season where that wasn't going to be my initiative that they had in mind for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I'm on your side. I'm on your side, and I'm off to the hospital now.
Oh my God. And more money, Nicole. We need more money, both of us.
Yeah, I'm off to the hospital. I have to find out like what my test results look like and if I'm able to get surgery. So I've been high anxiety this past hour, and I just want you to know I love you. I really like you. I really think you are such a genuine person, and I don't think we find that often with housewives people. So I congratulate you on that. And anytime we want to talk again or chat again, or if you even want to reach out to me privately, I'm here.
I love it. And I want to know what happens when you're ready to talk about it. Cause I'm
Yeah,
also on pins and needles this whole conversation thinking about it. Cause I know that you've been holding that this whole time. So I
that's a
just,
lot. It's a lot. I don't know.
all right.
My future is my future. So I just have to go find out.
Okay. I'm going to send you light and love right now. Everybody send Nicole light and love right
Thank
now.
you. Yep. And they have been. And same to you, my love. Same to you because you're a gorgeous person and I'm so excited to meet you.
Me too. I'm like going to fly out to LA now and meet you.
Yeah, yeah, we have to do that.
We
So
will. We will. And I'll help you with any of your charity stuff you're doing. Please let me help in any way I can. Okay.
yeah. Okay, perfect.
All right. On that note, I'm going to let Nicole go. And Nicole, good luck. I know you don't need it. I know it's going to be okay. I really feel good about it. And you guys, big kiss. Thanks for listening.
Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this week. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. Also, there is a tab if you'd like to submit any questions for Nicole's mailbag. Please do that because I love those. Those are one of my favorite segments of the podcast. And I hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye.